The diner went dead silent when the CEO stood up and did something nobody expected. She threw her $100 lunch across the table at her own executive. But that wasn't the shocking part. What stunned everyone was why she did it, and the worn red bracelet on the wrist of the exhausted man sitting across from her. A bracelet that connected two strangers in a way that would change everything. This is their story. A collision between two broken people that nobody saw coming. Before we dive in, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's begin. Ryan Cole's hands wouldn't stop shaking. He stood at the entrance of Miller's diner, the lunch rush swirling around him like a current he couldn't quite navigate. Every booth was full. Every table claimed. The smell of coffee and bacon grease hung thick in the air, making his empty stomach clench with something between hunger and nausea. He'd been on his feet since 4:30 that morning. The construction site first, then the warehouse job, and he still had his evening shift at the grocery store ahead of him. Somewhere in between all of that, he needed to eat. Needed to sit down before his legs gave out completely. But there were no seats. A woman brushed past him, annoyed. "You waiting for something or just blocking the door?" Ryan stepped aside, mumbling an apology she didn't hear. His work uniform, faded blue with his name stitched crookedly over the pocket, was dusty from the morning's demolition work. He could feel people's eyes sliding over him, dismissing him in the same breath. The hostess appeared, ponytail swinging. "It's going to be about 45 minutes for a table." 45 minutes. He had 20 before he needed to be back on the clock. "Right. Thanks." He turned to leave. "Hey, hey!" Ryan froze. The voice came from somewhere in the back corner, sharp and clear enough to cut through the diner noise. He scanned the crowd, confused. A hand went up. Slim fingers, perfectly manicured, attached to a woman who absolutely did not belong in Miller's diner. She was maybe mid-20s, sitting alone in a booth meant for four. Sleek black suit that probably cost more than Ryan's monthly rent. Dark hair pulled back in a way that looked effortless, but definitely wasn't. Her face was striking, the kind of face that made you look twice. Not because it was perfect, but because there was something fierce about it. Something that didn't quite match the corporate polish. "You?" she called again, looking straight at him. "You need a seat?" Every person within earshot turned to stare. Ryan felt heat crawl up his neck. I'm good. Thanks." "You're not good. You're swaying." Her tone wasn't mean, just factual. "Sit down before you fall down." A man in a golf shirt snorted into his coffee. His companion whispered something, and they both laughed. Ryan's jaw tightened. The last thing he needed was charity from someone who looked like she'd never missed a meal in her life. But his legs were screaming, and the floor was starting to tilt slightly. "Just sit," the woman said, and this time it wasn't a question. He moved before he could overthink it, weaving through tables to her booth. Up close, she was even more out of place. Everything about her screamed money and power. The watch alone could have paid his rent for 6 months, but her eyes were different. Tired, maybe. Or something else he couldn't quite name. Ryan slid into the opposite seat, keeping his dusty jacket tight against his side so he wouldn't dirty her pristine booth. "I'll just stay a minute. Catch my breath." "You'll stay until you eat," she said flatly. "I'm not—" That wasn't a suggestion. She pushed the menu across the table. "You sit at my table, you eat. Those are the terms." Ryan blinked. "That's a weird condition." "It's my condition." Something flickered across her face. A challenge, maybe, or a test. "So, you eating or not?" The waitress appeared before he could answer, looking harassed. "What can I get you?" "Coffee," Ryan said quietly. "Just coffee." The woman across from him made a sound of disapproval. "He'll have the breakfast special. Eggs, bacon, toast, hash browns, and orange juice." "I can't." "You can, and you will." She met his protest with a look that could have cut glass. "Considerate payment for keeping me company. Fair trade." The waitress scribbled and left. Ryan stared at the stranger who'd just ordered his lunch like she had every right to. "I don't need charity," he said, keeping his voice low. "Good. I'm not offering charity. I'm buying myself some company." She leaned back, studying him with an intensity that made him want to squirm. "I'm tired of eating alone, and you look like you actually understand what a hard day feels like. So we both get something out of this. Simple economics. Economics, Ryan repeated. Supply and demand. I supply the meal, you supply the conversation. Everyone wins. He should have left. Should have walked right out and found a vending machine somewhere. But something about the way she said it, practical, transactional, nothing soft or pitying about it, made him stay. I'm Ryan, he offered finally. She hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Lana. Nice to meet you, Lena. We'll see about that. But there was the ghost of a smile there, quick and gone. His food arrived faster than it had any right to. The breakfast special, still steaming, smelling like heaven. Ryan's stomach growled loud enough that Lena definitely heard it, though she had the grace not to comment. Eat, she said simply, returning to her own lunch, some kind of salad that looked expensive and unsatisfying. Ryan picked up his fork, put it down, picked it up again. Problem? Lena asked. He gestured vaguely at the plate, at her, at the situation. This is weird. Life's weird. Eat anyway. So he did. The first bite hit his system like a shock. Actual food, hot and filling. He'd been running on coffee and whatever free samples the grocery store put out. This was real. This mattered. Lena watched him for a moment, then seemed satisfied and returned to her salad. They ate in silence for a while, the diner chaos flowing around them like they were rocks in a stream. You work construction? She asked eventually, nodding at his uniform. Sometimes. Today, yeah. Also warehouse loading, and I stock shelves at Burton's Market most evenings. Her fork paused halfway to her mouth. That's 3 jobs. Good math skills, Ryan said, aiming for light, but landing somewhere closer to exhausted. That's insane. That's bills. He took a long drink of orange juice, felt the sugar hit his bloodstream. That's feeding my daughter and keeping a roof over her head. That's how it works. Something shifted in Lena's expression. You have a daughter. Emma. She's 7. His voice automatically softened when he said her name. It always did. Smart as hell. Reads 3 grades above her level. Draws these pictures that just... I don't know where she gets it from, but she's talented. Really talented. You raise her alone? Yeah. Ryan didn't elaborate. The story of Emma's mother leaving when she was 2 months old wasn't first meeting material. Wasn't any meeting material, really. Lena set down her fork. And you work 3 jobs to support her. Someone has to. Most fathers would have bailed. Most fathers are assholes. The words came out harder than he intended. Sorry, that was true, probably. Lena's mouth curved slightly. Don't apologize for being honest. It's refreshing. Ryan studied her across the table. Designer suit, expensive jewelry, the kind of confidence that came from never having to check a price tag. But there was something else there, too. Something that felt like it had sharp edges. What about you? He asked. What do you do that requires eating alone in diners at noon on a Tuesday? I run a company. What kind of company? Heart Technologies. We do software development, data analytics, cloud infrastructure. She said it automatically, like she'd repeated it 1,000 times. We have about 300 employees, offices in 4 states, an evaluation that makes investors very excited. Ryan whistled low. And you're eating here? I like diners. They're honest. She stabbed at a piece of lettuce. Unlike most places I have to be. There was a story there. Ryan could hear it in the way her voice flattened, see it in how her shoulders tensed. But before he could decide whether to push, a voice cut through the diner. Lena? Lena Hart? A man approached their table. Mid-40s, expensive suit that somehow looked cheaper than Lena's, slicked back hair, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Behind him, a younger guy in similar corporate armor, holding a tablet like a shield. Marcus? Lena's tone went absolutely flat. What a surprise. I'll say. Marcus's gaze swept over Ryan, lingering on the dusty uniform with obvious distaste. Slumming it today? Having lunch, Lena corrected. Is there something you need? Just surprised to see the CEO of Heart Technologies sharing a booth with... He waved vaguely at Ryan. Help. The diner seemed to get quieter. Ryan felt eyes turning their way, felt the judgment settling over their table like fog. Marcus, this is Ryan, Lena said evenly. Ryan, this is Marcus Chen. He works for me, VP of Strategic Development. For now, Marcus said, his smile sharpening. Though after this morning's board meeting, who knows how long any of us will be working for you. Lena's jaw tightened. Careful, Marcus. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. The board's concerned. Your decisions lately have been erratic, emotional. His eyes flicked to Ryan again. And this just proves their point. The CEO eating with the janitor. I'm not a janitor, Ryan said quietly. Marcus didn't even look at him. Whatever you are, you're certainly not the kind of company a serious CEO should be keeping. Not when she's already on thin ice. Get the hell away from this table. Lena's voice was cold enough to frost glass. Or what? You'll fire me? Marcus laughed. Lena, sweetheart, I'm not the problem here. Your inability to lead is the problem. Your dead mother's company is dying under your... Lena stood so fast her chair screeched. Every conversation in the diner stopped. Do not, she said, each word precise and deadly, talk about my mother. Oh, here we go. The emotional response. This is exactly what I mean. Marcus turned to address the now captive audience. Everyone sees it. She inherited a successful company, and she's running it into the ground because she can't separate personal feelings from business decisions. She's weak. She's distracted. And now she's wasting time with random strangers in... The plate of expensive salad hit Marcus square in the chest. Lettuce and vinaigrette exploded across his suit. Cherry tomatoes bounced off his tie. The diner erupted in gasps and shocked laughter. Ryan sat frozen, his brain trying to catch up with what just happened. Marcus sputtered, dripping dressing. You psychotic... Get out! Lena's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. You're fired. Clean out your desk by end of day. I'll have security escort you if necessary. You can't fire me. The board doesn't run this company. I do. And I'm telling you to leave before I do something worse than ruin your overpriced suit. Marcus's face went purple. His assistant grabbed his arm, whispering urgently. After a long, tense moment, Marcus jabbed a finger at Lena. This isn't over. You're going to regret this. The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner. They left. Marcus trailing salad greens, his assistant frantically texting. The diner stayed silent for 3 full seconds, then exploded into conversation. Lena sat back down. Her hands were still shaking. She pressed them flat against the table, breathing carefully. Ryan didn't know what to say. Every script in his head felt inadequate. So, he tried. That was intense. Lena let out a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been something else entirely. That was me burning my professional reputation to the ground. He deserved it. Doesn't matter, he's right. The board already questions my leadership. This just gave them ammunition. She looked at Ryan, something raw in her expression. I just torpedoed my career for someone I met 15 minutes ago. Why? Because he was an asshole. There's probably a lot of assholes in your world. You can't throw food at all of them. Watch me. But her voice cracked slightly on the words. Ryan realized she was close to falling apart. Not crying, nothing that obvious, but something was breaking behind that polished exterior. Hey, he said softly. Breathe. I'm breathing. No, you're panicking. There's a difference. He kept his voice low, the way he did with Emma after bad dreams. It's okay. You're okay. I'm really not. Lena's laugh was bitter. I'm the CEO of a company my mother built from nothing, and I'm failing. The board wants me out. Half my executives are plotting against me. And the person I thought I could trust just sided with them this morning. The person you thought you could trust? My fiancée. She twisted the engagement ring on her finger, massive diamond, cold and perfect. Former fiancé as of about 2 hours ago. He told the board I was too emotional to lead, that I was making decisions based on sentiment instead of logic, that maybe I should step down for the good of the company. Ryan's chest tightened. Jesus. And the worst part? He wasn't wrong. Lena stared at the table. I have been making emotional decisions. I've been trying to run this company the way my mother would have wanted, not the way it needs to be run. And it's falling apart because I can't separate what I want to believe from what actually works. What do you want to believe? That business can be about more than profit, that you can care about people and still be successful, that there's a way to honor what she built without destroying it. Her voice dropped. My mother started this company to help people. That was always her goal. Make technology accessible, create jobs, build something meaningful. And I'm watching it turn into exactly what she fought against. Ryan was quiet for a moment, processing. This woman across from him, this CEO with the designer suit and the corporate empire, was just as lost as he was, just in a different way. Maybe your mom had it right, he said finally. Lena looked up. What? Caring about people. My boss at the warehouse, he runs everything by the numbers. Efficiency, productivity, profit margins. We're not people to him. We're units. We're expenses he has to manage. Ryan pushed his empty plate aside. I work 3 jobs because none of them pay enough to live on. Because caring about employees cuts into profit, so why bother? It's not that simple, isn't it? Ryan met her eyes. You're sitting here feeling bad because you want to run your company like it matters who works there. Like they're actual human beings, not just resources. And everyone's telling you that's wrong. That's weakness. He leaned forward. But from where I'm sitting, that's the only thing that makes you different from Marcus. Lena stared at him. You don't understand the pressure such... No, I don't. I don't understand your world at all. Ryan gestured around the diner. But I understand being told you're doing it wrong when you're just trying to do it decent. And I know what it's like when the people who should support you decide you're not worth it. Something changed in Lena's face. The corporate mask cracked just a little. How do you do it? She asked quietly. Keep going when everything's fighting you. I don't have a choice. Emma needs me. He paused. But also, I don't know. I guess I figure if I'm going to break, might as well break doing something that matters. Lena laughed, but it sounded almost like a sob. That's terrible logic. Yeah, well, I'm not a CEO. My logic doesn't have to be sound. They sat in silence for a minute. The diner had mostly returned to normal, though Ryan could still feel curious eyes on their table. I'm sorry, Lena said suddenly, for dragging you into that mess with Marcus. You didn't sign up for corporate warfare. I signed up for breakfast. The warfare was just a bonus. Ryan managed a small smile. Besides, watching you nail that guy with a salad was worth the price of admission. I'll probably regret it tomorrow. Probably. But it was still satisfying, right? Extremely. Lena's mouth quirked. God, I haven't done anything that impulsive in years. How'd it feel? Terrifying, liberating, completely stupid. She looked at him. Worth it. The waitress appeared, eyeing their table nervously. Everything okay here? Perfect, Lena said smoothly, pulling out her wallet. Just the check, please. Already taken care of, the waitress said, nodding toward the counter. The gentleman in the blue shirt said your table's on him. Ryan and Lena both turned. An older man in work clothes raised his coffee mug to them, grinning. Around him, a few other diners nodded approvingly. Well, Ryan said, I guess you have fans. Or people really hated Marcus. But Lena smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. They stood to leave. Outside, the afternoon sun was bright and unforgiving. Lena pulled on sunglasses that probably cost more than Ryan's car. Thank you, she said, for lunch, for the conversation, for not running away when things got weird. Thanks for feeding me, and for the entertainment. Ryan hesitated. For what it's worth. I think your mom would be proud. Not of the salad throwing maybe, but the rest of it. Lena's expression went soft. You didn't know her. No, but I know you're trying to honor what she built. That's not weakness. That's the opposite. She looked at him for a long moment, like she was trying to figure out if he meant it. Finally, she nodded. I should go. I have a company to attempt salvaging. She started to walk away, then stopped. Ryan? Yeah? Your daughter, Emma, the one who draws. What about her? Don't let anyone tell you she can't make it. Talent matters. So does having someone who believes in you. Lena's voice was firm. She's lucky to have you. Ryan's throat tightened. I'm the lucky one. Lena nodded once more, then headed for a sleek black car parked at the curb. Ryan watched her go, feeling like he'd just stepped out of someone else's life and back into his own. His phone buzzed. 5 minutes until his next shift. He started walking, the ghost of breakfast still warm in his stomach. For the first time in weeks, he didn't feel like he was drowning. He didn't notice the red bracelet on his wrist catching the light as he moved. Didn't see Lena glance back at exactly the wrong or right moment. Didn't know that a simple lunch had just set something in motion that neither of them could stop. Ryan made it to Burton's Market with 30 seconds to spare. His manager, Derek, looked up from his clipboard with the expression of a man perpetually disappointed by humanity. "Cutting it close, Cole. Sorry, got held up." "You're always getting held up." Derek made a mark on his clipboard. "Stockroom needs restocking. Aisle 7's a disaster. And someone spilled something in frozen food, so grab a mop after you clock in." Ryan nodded and headed for the time clock, his legs already protesting. The breakfast from Miller's had helped, but it couldn't erase the exhaustion from 2 jobs already completed. He still had 4 hours ahead of him. The afternoon blurred into the usual routine: boxes, shelves, price tags. Smile at customers. Apologize when they complained about things he couldn't control. His mind kept drifting back to the diner, to Lena throwing that salad like she was declaring war on her entire corporate existence. He'd probably never see her again. People like her didn't circle back to people like him. That was just reality. Around 6, his phone buzzed. Emma's aftercare program. "Mr. Cole? Hi, it's Jennifer from Bright Start. Just wanted to let you know Emma's ready for pickup whenever you can make it." Ryan checked his watch. Derek usually let him take his break around 6:30. "I'll be there by 7. Is she okay?" "She's great, working on a new drawing. You're going to love it." That made him smile despite everything. "Thanks, Jennifer. See you soon." The next 20 minutes dragged. Finally, Derek waved him off, and Ryan practically ran to his car, a 15-year-old sedan held together by prayer and duct tape. The engine coughed twice before turning over. Bright Start Academy was a 20-minute drive through traffic that tested Ryan's patience on the best days. Today wasn't a best day. A fender bender on 5th Street had everything backed up. By the time he pulled into the parking lot, it was 7:15 and his guilt was eating him alive. Emma was the last kid there. She sat at a small table, crayon moving across paper in careful strokes, completely absorbed. 7 years old with dark curls that never stayed contained in her mother's eyes, the only good thing that woman had left behind. "Hey, Bug," Ryan said softly. Emma's head snapped up. "Daddy!" She launched herself at him, and Ryan caught her, burying his face in her hair. This was why he worked 3 jobs, why he pushed himself past breaking, this right here. "Sorry I'm late." "It's okay. Jennifer let me use the good markers." Emma pulled back, excited. "Want to see what I made?" "Always." She dragged him to the table where her latest masterpiece waited. Ryan studied it, something in his chest going tight. The drawing showed a man and a girl, clearly him and Emma, standing in front of a house. Not their cramped apartment, but an actual house with a yard and trees. The detail was remarkable for a 7-year-old. The perspective slightly off, but the emotion clear. "That's us," Emma explained unnecessarily. "In our someday house. See, there's a swing in the backyard, and that's a garden where we can grow tomatoes. You said you liked tomatoes." Ryan's throat closed up. "It's perfect, Em. You really think so?" "I know so. You're incredibly talented." Emma beamed. Jennifer, the program director, appeared with Emma's backpack. "She worked on that for 2 hours, Jennifer said warmly. Wouldn't stop until it was exactly right." "Sounds like someone I know," Ryan said, ruffling Emma's hair. "Mr. Cole, can I talk to you for just a second?" Jennifer's tone shifted slightly. "Emma, honey, why don't you pick out a book from the reading corner?" Emma skipped off. Ryan's stomach knotted. Nothing good ever started with, "Can I talk to you for a second?" "Is something wrong?" he asked. "Not wrong exactly." Jennifer chose her words carefully. Emma's teacher mentioned that she might benefit from some enrichment activities. Art classes specifically. Her talent is really exceptional, and with the right guidance— "I can't afford classes," Ryan said flatly. "I can barely afford aftercare." "I know, and I'm not trying to pressure you. I just wanted you to be aware that there are scholarship programs, community centers that offer free or reduced-cost classes." Jennifer pulled a flyer from her pocket. "This one starts next month. It's worth looking into." Ryan took the flyer without really seeing it. Another thing Emma needed that he couldn't provide. Another way he was failing her. "Thanks," he managed. I'll check it out. She's a great kid, Mr. Cole. You're doing an amazing job with her. He nodded, not trusting his voice. They gathered Emma's things and headed out to the car. Emma chattered the whole drive home about her day, the story her teacher read, the game at recess, the cafeteria running out of chocolate milk, which was basically a tragedy. Ryan listened, made the right sounds, tried to be present, but part of his mind was calculating. Rent was due in 2 weeks. The car needed an oil change he'd been putting off for 3 months. Emma needed new shoes, and now there was this art class thing, this opportunity he couldn't give her. Their apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better days somewhere around 1987. The hallway smelled like old carpet and someone's cooking, something with too much garlic. Their unit was small, just one bedroom that Emma had, and a pull-out couch for Ryan, but it was clean and it was theirs. Homework first, Ryan said, unlocking the door. Then dinner. Can we have spaghetti? We can have spaghetti. Emma settled at their tiny kitchen table with her workbook while Ryan started boiling water. He moved on autopilot, checking her math problems while the pasta cooked, helping her sound out words for her reading assignment. Daddy? Emma asked, looking up from a subtraction problem. Are you sad? What? No, Bug. Why? You have your sad face. The one where you smile but your eyes don't. Ryan's heart cracked a little. 7 years old and already too perceptive. I'm just tired, he said, which wasn't a lie. Long day. You always have long days. That's what happens when you're a grown-up. You'll understand someday. I don't want to be a grown-up then. It sounds terrible. It has its moments, Ryan said, draining the pasta. But it's also got spaghetti, so there's that. Emma giggled. That sound, her laugh, made everything else bearable. They ate dinner, Emma talking between bites about an elaborate scenario involving her stuffed animals staging a rebellion against bedtime. Ryan let her ramble, content to just listen. These moments, simple as they were, mattered more than anything else in his life. After dinner, bath time, then story time, then the delicate negotiation of actual bedtime. 5 more minutes? Emma tried, her eyelids already drooping. You said that 10 minutes ago. But this time I really mean it. Night, Bug. Ryan kissed her forehead. Love you more than spaghetti. Love you more than chocolate milk, Emma mumbled, already half asleep. Ryan stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her breathe. Then he pulled the door mostly closed and collapsed onto the couch. 9:30. He had to be up at 4 for the construction job. 6.5 hours if he fell asleep right now, which he wouldn't because his brain wouldn't shut off. He pulled out the flyer Jennifer had given him. Creative Minds Youth Art Program, ages 6 to 12. Scholarships available based on need. The application looked straightforward enough. Family income, number of dependents, statement explaining why art education mattered for the child. Ryan could write that in his sleep. Emma's talent wasn't just hobby level, it was real. The kind of thing that could actually go somewhere if given the chance. But the scholarship wasn't guaranteed, and if she didn't get it, then he'd have gotten her hopes up for nothing. That felt worse than not trying at all. Ryan set the flyer aside and closed his eyes. Tomorrow. He'd think about it tomorrow. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ryan almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Hello? Ryan Cole? A woman's voice, professional but warm. Yeah, who's this? My name is Patricia Wells. I'm calling from Heart Technologies. Do you have a moment to talk? Ryan sat up. Heart Technologies, Lena's company. Sure? Great. Ms. Hart asked me to reach out to you. She'd like to schedule a meeting at your earliest convenience to discuss a potential opportunity. A what? An opportunity. She was deliberately vague about the details, but she seemed quite insistent that I contact you tonight. Patricia paused. I have openings tomorrow at 10 noon or 3. Would any of those work? Ryan's brain stuttered. I'm working tomorrow. What time would work better for you? I work until 7. 7:30 then? I know it's late, but Ms. Hart specified that we should accommodate your schedule. This was insane. CEOs didn't track down random people they met in diners, especially not after the kind of day Lena had described. Can I ask what this is about? Ms. Hart didn't elaborate, and I know better than to push when she's in a particular mood. Patricia sounded amused. But she did mention you had a daughter with artistic talent. That might be relevant. Emma. This was about Emma. 7:30 works, Ryan heard himself say. Where? Our main office downtown. I'll text you the address. Just give your name at the front desk and someone will escort you to Ms. Hart's office. Okay, yeah, thanks. See you tomorrow, Mr. Cole. The line went dead. Ryan stared at his phone like it might explain what just happened. Lena Hart wanted to meet with him. About Emma. About an opportunity. He should have felt excited. Instead, he felt uneasy. People like Lena didn't do things without reason. And in Ryan's experience, when something seemed too good to be true, it usually was. But Emma's drawing flashed through his mind. That someday house with the garden and the swing set. All the things he couldn't give her with 3 jobs and barely enough to cover rent. What if this was a chance? What if Lena actually meant to help? What if it was pity? Ryan's jaw tightened. He didn't want pity, didn't want charity. He'd made that clear at the diner. But this was about Emma. And for Emma, he'd swallow his pride. He'd go to the meeting, listen to whatever Lena had to say. And if it smelled even slightly like charity, he'd walk away. Ryan set his alarm and lay back down, but sleep was even further away now. His mind churned through possibilities, worst-case scenarios, fragile hopes he was afraid to examine too closely. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, he finally drifted off. The next day was brutal. The construction foreman was in a foul mood, which meant everyone suffered. Ryan spent 8 hours hauling debris in 90-degree heat, his body screaming. The warehouse shift was better, but still exhausting. By the time 7 o'clock rolled around, he was ready to collapse. Instead, he went home, showered in record time, and changed into the only decent clothes he owned, khakis and a button-down that had seen better days. Emma was at Mrs. Chen's apartment across the hall, probably eating better dinner than Ryan could have provided. I'll be back by 9, he told Mrs. Chen, a grandmother who watched Emma a few nights a week in exchange for Ryan fixing things around her apartment. Take your time, dear. Emma and I are having a fashion show with all my old scarves. Ryan kissed Emma goodbye. She barely noticed, too busy draping herself in purple silk, and headed downtown. Hart Technologies occupied the top 5 floors of a glass tower that made Ryan feel immediately out of place. The lobby alone probably cost more than his entire apartment building. Everything was chrome and marble and ambient lighting that seemed designed to make you feel small. He gave his name to the receptionist, who looked him over with barely concealed skepticism before making a phone call. 2 minutes later, a young woman in a sharp suit appeared. Mr. Cole? I'm Ashley, Ms. Hart's executive assistant. Please follow me. The elevator ride was silent and uncomfortable. Ashley kept checking her phone, pointedly not making conversation. Ryan tried not to fidget. The executive floor was even more intimidating. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Art that was probably worth more than Ryan would make in a decade. Employees in expensive clothes moving with purpose. Ashley led him to a corner office with double doors. She knocked once, then opened them. Mr. Cole is here. Thank you, Ashley. That's all for tonight. Lena's office was massive. Ryan had seen studio apartments smaller than this room. One wall was entirely windows, the city spread out below like a promise. The furniture was modern, elegant, impersonal. Lena stood by the windows, still in work clothes, but somehow less polished than yesterday. Her jacket was draped over a chair, her hair slightly loose from its earlier severity. She looked tired. Ryan, she said, thanks for coming. Yeah, well, you were pretty cryptic about why. Close the door. He did. Lena gestured to a sitting area, actual couches, not just office chairs. Ryan sat carefully, hyper-aware that he probably looked like he'd just come from manual labor because he had. Lena sat across from him, and for a moment neither of them spoke. How was your day? She asked finally. Long, hot, the usual. Ryan leaned forward. Look, I appreciate whatever this is, but I need you to be straight with me. Why am I here? Because I can't stop thinking about what you said yesterday. About what? About doing something that matters. Lena's eyes met his. About your daughter. About how the system's designed to keep people like you down no matter how hard you work. Okay, and I want to do something about it. Ryan's stomach dropped. I don't want your money. I'm not offering money. Then what? Lena stood, pacing to the window. After you left yesterday, I went back to the office. Had a long conversation with my board. Several long conversations, actually. Marcus filed a formal complaint, claimed I was unstable, unfit to lead. Jesus, I'm sorry. Don't be. It clarified things. She turned back to him. I've been trying to run this company the way I thought everyone wanted. Profitable, efficient, ruthless when necessary. But that's not what my mother built. That's not what I want. What do you want? I want to do what she did. Help people who are working their asses off and getting nowhere because the system's rigged against them. Single parents, people working multiple jobs, families who are one emergency away from losing everything. Lena's voice strengthened. I want to create a program, mentorship, resources, scholarships, real support, not just tax-deductible charity. Ryan processed this. And you're telling me this because? Because I want you to help me build it. The room went very quiet. You're joking, Ryan said. I'm completely serious. I'm not qualified to. I don't have any experience with. You have the only experience that matters. You know what it's like. Lena sat back down, leaning forward intently. I can write checks all day. I can create programs and hire coordinators and do all the corporate infrastructure. But I don't know what people actually need. I don't know what would have helped you 3 years ago when you were barely keeping your head above water. So you want me to what? Be a consultant? I want you to be part of it from the ground up. Help design it. Make sure it's actually useful instead of just another well-intentioned program that misses the point. She paused. And I want to start with Emma. Ryan went still. Explain. The art classes, the ones her aftercare director mentioned. I want to fund a full scholarship. Art supplies, classes, everything she needs to develop her talent. Lena held up a hand before Ryan could protest. Before you say no, listen. This isn't charity. This is me proving the concept. If I can't even help one kid, how can I build something bigger? You researched me. Ryan's voice was flat. I had Patricia make some calls. I'm sorry if that feels invasive, but I needed to understand the situation. You had no right. You're absolutely correct. I didn't. Lena didn't back down. But I did it anyway because I can't stop thinking about Emma's drawing. The someday house. The life you can't give her no matter how hard you work. Her voice softened. My mother started this company with nothing. She built it to give other people chances she never had. And I've spent the last 2 years turning it into exactly the kind of place that would have crushed her. So this is about your guilt? Partially, probably. Lena met his eyes. But it's also about being tired of watching people like you break yourselves for a system that doesn't care. And it's about honoring the one person who actually believed business could be different. Ryan wanted to say no. Every instinct screamed that accepting this was a mistake, that it would come with strings, that people like Lana didn't help people like him without expecting something in return. But then he thought about Emma, about her talent that deserved more than cheap crayons and printer paper, about opportunities he couldn't provide no matter how many jobs he worked. What's the catch? He asked. No catch. Emma gets the scholarship regardless of whether you agree to help with the larger program. That's non-negotiable. Nothing's free. This is, Lena's expression was earnest. Ryan, I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to let me prove that this can work. If it doesn't, if I screw it up, or if it turns out I'm just another rich person playing savior, you walk away. No strings. And if I help build this program, what do I get out of it? A salary, a real one. Enough that you can quit at least 2 of your current jobs. Benefits, time with your daughter. Lena ticked them off. And maybe, the satisfaction of helping other people like you actually get ahead. It sounded too good. Ryan had learned the hard way that things that sounded too good were usually traps. But Lena's eyes were steady, not pitying, not condescending, just determined. I need to think about it, Ryan said. Fair enough. Lena stood, walked to her desk, and returned with a folder. Everything's in here. The scholarship details for Emma, the proposal for the larger program, what I'm offering you. She handed it over. Take your time. Talk to Emma. Make whatever decision works for you. Ryan took the folder. It was heavier than it should have been. Can I ask you something? He said. Of course. Why me? You could find a dozen people more qualified, more educated, better connected. Lena smiled, but it was sad. Because yesterday, when everything was falling apart, you didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. You told me what I needed to hear. And because my mother would have liked you. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Lena's voice went soft. She had a thing about people. Could always tell the ones who were real from the ones who were performing. You're real, Ryan. That's rare in my world. Ryan didn't know what to say to that. He stood, folder in hand, feeling off balance. I'll read through this. Let you know. That's all I'm asking. Ashley appeared to escort him out. Ryan followed her back through the pristine hallways, into the elevator, through the intimidating lobby. Outside, the night air hit him like a splash of cold water. He sat in his car for a long time, the folder unopened on the passenger seat. This could change everything. Or it could blow up in his face spectacularly. Ryan thought about Emma, asleep at Mrs. Chen's, dreaming whatever 7-year-olds dreamed. He thought about the someday house that would probably stay someday forever if nothing changed. He opened the folder. The first document was the scholarship proposal. Full funding for 2 years of art classes at one of the best youth programs in the city. Supplies included. No income verification required. Emma's name already filled in. The second document was the program outline. Ambitious didn't begin to cover it. Lena wanted to create a comprehensive support system for working families. Childcare assistance, job training, educational scholarships, even emergency funding for unexpected crises. It was the kind of thing that could actually make a difference. The third document was an employment offer. Program director. Salary that made Ryan's eyes water. Health insurance, paid time off. Start date flexible pending acceptance. Ryan read it twice to make sure he wasn't hallucinating. This was real. Lena was serious. His phone rang. Mrs. Chen. Ryan? Emma's asking for you. I think she had a bad dream. I'm on my way. He shoved the documents back in the folder and started the car. 20 minutes later, he was scooping Emma into his arms while she clung to him, half asleep and teary. It's okay, Bug. I'm here. You were gone, she mumbled into his shoulder. Never for long. Never for long. He carried her back to their apartment, tucked her into bed, sat beside her until her breathing evened out. Then he returned to the living room and the folder that might change everything. Ryan looked at the employment offer one more time, then at Emma's closed door. He pulled out his phone and typed a message to the number Patricia had called from. I'm in. When do we start? The response came almost immediately. Monday, 9 a.m. Welcome aboard, Ryan. He set the phone down, his hands shaking slightly. This was either the best decision he'd ever made or the biggest mistake of his life. Either way, there was no going back now. Monday morning arrived too fast and not fast enough. Ryan stood outside Hart Technologies at 8:45, wearing the same khakis and button-down from Friday, trying to convince himself he belonged here. Around him, people in expensive suits flowed through the revolving doors like they owned the building. Maybe some of them did. His phone buzzed. Emma, texting from Mrs. Chen's apartment where she'd spend the morning before school. Good luck on your first day, Daddy. Love you more than chocolate milk and spaghetti combined. Ryan smiled despite his nerves and typed back a heart emoji. Then he took a breath and walked inside. The receptionist from Friday, different woman, same skeptical look, directed him to the 14th floor. Ashley met him at the elevator, her expression slightly less frigid than last time. Ms. Hart is in a meeting with the board. She asked me to get you settled. Ashley's heels clicked efficiently down the hallway. Your office is this way. I have an office? Of course. You're a director-level position. Ryan followed her to a corner space that was smaller than Lena's but still bigger than his entire apartment. Windows overlooking the city, actual wooden desk, a computer that looked like it cost more than his car. Patricia from HR will be up shortly with your paperwork. IT will set up your credentials, and Ms. Hart scheduled a one-on-one with you at 11. Ashley handed him a folder. Building access, parking pass, employee handbook. Cafeteria's on 12, coffee stations down the hall. Any questions? About 1,000? Start with the handbook. It's actually useful. Ashley's expression softened microscopically. Welcome to Hart Technologies, Mr. Cole. She left. Ryan stood in his new office, feeling like an imposter who'd wandered into the wrong life. The morning blurred past in a haze of paperwork, an IT setup, and trying to figure out how the fancy coffee machine worked. Patricia from HR was efficient and friendly, explaining benefits that seemed almost fictional, health insurance that actually covered things, retirement matching, something called personal development funds that Ryan didn't entirely understand. You're also entitled to flex time, Patricia explained. Since you have a daughter, Ms. Hart specifically noted that your schedule should accommodate school pickups and activities. She put that in writing? She was very clear about it. Patricia smiled. Ms. Hart takes work-life balance seriously. At least she's trying to. At 11 exactly, Ashley appeared to escort him to Lena's office. Ryan's stomach nodded. This was real now. He couldn't back out. Lena looked exhausted. She sat behind her massive desk, surrounded by papers and what looked like the remnants of several cups of coffee. When Ryan entered, she stood quickly. You came. You offered me a job. Yeah, I came. I half expected you to change your mind over the weekend. Lena gestured to the sitting area. How's the office? Everything okay? It's insane. The office is bigger than my apartment. I can get you a smaller one if you'd prefer. I'm not complaining, just stating facts. Ryan sat down. So, what now? Lena pulled out a tablet, swiping through screens. Now we build this thing. I've allocated initial funding, cleared it with the board, barely, and we have about 6 months to prove the concept works before they try to kill it entirely. 6 months isn't much time. No, it's not, which is why we need to move fast. She pulled up a document. I've drafted an initial framework, but I need your input. Real input, not just rubber stamping my ideas. They spent the next 2 hours going through Lena's proposal point by point. She'd done her homework, researched existing programs, identified gaps, calculated costs, but Ryan kept finding places where the plan missed the mark. This part about job training, he said, pointing at the screen. You're assuming people have time to attend classes. They don't. When you're working 3 jobs, you don't have Tuesday evenings free for a 2-hour workshop. So what's the solution? Make it flexible. Online modules they can do at midnight if that's when they're free. Or pay them to attend training. Their time has value. Lena made a note. What else? Childcare. You mention it here, but it's buried. That should be front and center. You know how much I pay for Emma's aftercare? 30% of my income from the grocery store. And that's the cheap option. What would actually help? Subsidized care. Or on-site care. Something that doesn't require parents to choose between working and having their kids supervised. They went back and forth, Ryan pushing back on assumptions, Lena taking notes and asking follow-up questions. It felt less like a boss-employee dynamic and more like actual collaboration, like his opinion mattered. Around 1, Ashley knocked with lunch, sandwiches from somewhere that definitely wasn't Miller's Diner. You need to eat, Lena said, echoing her words from their first meeting. You ordering my meals going to be a regular thing? Only when you forget to take care of yourself. She bit into her sandwich, which I'm guessing is often. Ryan couldn't argue with that. They ate while continuing to work, the conversation flowing easier now. Lena asked about his experience with different social services, what had helped, and what had been useless bureaucracy. Ryan found himself talking about things he usually kept buried. The humiliation of applying for assistance, the maze of paperwork designed to make you give up, the caseworkers who treated you like a number instead of a person. One time, he said, I spent 4 hours in line at the benefits office. 4 hours. Emma was with me because I couldn't afford childcare that day. She was 5. By the time we got to the window, the caseworker told me I was missing a form nobody had mentioned I needed. She sent me home, told me to come back another day. That's unconscionable. That's the system. Ryan set down his sandwich. And the worst part? The caseworker wasn't even mean. She was just tired, overworked, underpaid, dealing with impossible caseloads. The system breaks everyone, not just the people asking for help. Lena was quiet for a moment. What would you have needed that day? Someone to treat me like I was human? Someone to say, hey, you're missing this form, but I can see you've been waiting for hours with a kid. Let me see what I can do. Ryan met her eyes. Compassion costs nothing, but in most systems, it's the first thing to go. Then we build something different, Lena's voice was firm. Something that treats people with dignity. Easy to say, harder to do. Good thing I have you to keep me honest. They worked until 4 when Ryan had to leave for Emma's school pickup. Lena didn't question it, just told him to bring Emma by sometime if he wanted. Ryan wasn't sure how he felt about that. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm that felt surreal. Ryan would drop Emma at school, head to Hart Technologies, spend the day working on program development, then pick Emma up and actually spend the evening with her. No warehouse shift, no grocery store, just dinner and homework and bedtime stories. The financial breathing room was staggering. Ryan paid rent without having to calculate which bill could wait another week. He bought Emma new shoes without checking his account 3 times first. He even started a savings account, something he hadn't been able to do in years. But the actual work was harder than he'd expected. Ryan and Lena assembled a small team. Patricia from HR, a program coordinator named James, who'd worked in social services, a financial advisor to manage the funding. They met twice a week, hashing out details, arguing over approaches, slowly building something that might actually work. Emma started her art classes on a Saturday morning. Ryan drove her to the youth center, his stomach tight with anticipation. What if she hated it? What if the other kids were mean? What if this was a mistake? But when he picked her up 3 hours later, Emma practically glowed. "Daddy, we learned about perspective, and the teacher said my shading was really advanced. And there's a girl named Maya who draws horses, and she showed me how to do manes." The words tumbled out in an excited rush. "Can I go back next week, please?" "Yeah, Bug. You can go back." Emma threw her arms around him. "This is the best thing ever." Ryan's throat tightened. This was why he'd taken the risk. That evening, he texted Lena a photo of Emma's latest drawing, a landscape with actual depth and shadow, techniques she'd learned that morning. Lena's response was immediate. "She's incredibly talented. Thank you for letting me be part of this." "Thank you for making it possible," Ryan typed back. At work, things were getting complicated. The board had agreed to fund the program's pilot phase, but barely. Several executives saw it as a vanity project, a waste of resources that should go toward profit margins. Marcus, despite being fired, still had allies who were making Lena's life difficult. Ryan witnessed it firsthand during a presentation to the executive team. Lena outlined the program's goals, the projected costs, the potential impact. She was polished and professional, backing every claim with data. But the pushback was immediate. "This is a corporation, not a charity," said a man in a suit that probably cost more than Ryan's monthly salary. "Our shareholders expect returns, not feel-good initiatives. Our shareholders also benefit from positive PR and community goodwill," Lena countered. "Community goodwill doesn't pay dividends." "Neither does a toxic corporate reputation." Lena's voice stayed level. "We're not talking about unlimited funding. This is a pilot program with clear metrics and a defined timeline. If it doesn't show results, we reassess." "And who determines what counts as results?" asked a woman with severe glasses. "Because from where I'm sitting, this looks like the CEO playing savior to make herself feel better." Ryan saw Lena's jaw tighten. He'd been sitting quietly in the corner, supposedly taking notes, but he couldn't stay silent. "Can I say something?" he asked. The room went silent. Several executives turned to look at him like they'd forgotten he was there. "Mr. Cole," the severe glasses woman said, "I'm not sure this is appropriate." "Let him speak," Lena said. Ryan stood, his palms sweating. Public speaking wasn't his thing. But watching these people dismiss something that could actually matter made his blood boil. "You want to know what results look like?" he said. "My daughter is 7 years old. 2 months ago, she was drawing with broken crayons on scrap paper because that's all I could afford. Now she's in real art classes with actual supplies, learning from people who recognize her talent. That's a result." "That's anecdotal," someone started. "Let me finish." Ryan's voice was harder than intended. "I worked 3 jobs, barely slept. Missed time with my kid because I was always working. And I was still one emergency away from losing everything. That's not laziness. That's not poor planning. That's a system designed to keep people trapped. We're not social services. No, you're a company that makes millions while your competitors offer better benefits and wonder why they have lower turnover." Ryan looked around the room. "You want results? Happy employees work harder. Communities you invest in buy your products. Kids who get opportunities become skilled workers. This isn't charity. This is long-term strategy." The room stayed quiet. Ryan realized he might have just tanked Lena's proposal in his own job. Then the man in the expensive suit leaned back. He's not wrong about the turnover issue. Our competitor retention rates are notably higher, someone else admitted. Severe glasses woman looked annoyed but thoughtful. What are the actual metrics you're proposing? Lena jumped in, smoothly taking control back. But as she talked, she caught Ryan's eye and gave him the smallest nod. Thank you. The meeting ended without a clear decision, but it wasn't the immediate shutdown Ryan had feared. Walking back to his office afterward, Lena fell into step beside him. That was risky, she said. Probably stupid. Sorry if I overstepped. Don't apologize. That was exactly what they needed to hear. Lena smiled. You're good at this. At what? Making myself unemployable? At cutting through corporate nonsense? At making things real. She stopped outside her office. I've been fighting these battles for months, but when you talk about Emma, about your experience, they actually listen. Because you're not theoretical. You're proof that the system is broken. Glad my suffering has a purpose, Ryan said dryly. That's not what I meant. I know, He rubbed his face. This is exhausting. Your world. All this fighting to do something that should be obvious. Welcome to corporate leadership. It's terrible, and I hate it. Lena leaned against the doorframe. But we're making progress, slowly. Over the next week, momentum built. The board agreed to a limited pilot program. 5 families, 6 months, full support services. If it showed positive outcomes, they'd expand. If not, it would quietly disappear. 5 families wasn't many, but it was a start. Ryan and James spent days reviewing applications, single mothers working multiple jobs, fathers trying to support kids on minimum wage, families 1 paycheck from homelessness. Each application was a story of people working themselves to death and barely surviving. Choosing only 5 felt impossible. How do we decide, Cham? Ryan asked, staring at the stack of folders. They all need help. We pick the ones we can help most effectively, James said pragmatically. The ones where intervention will make the biggest difference. That feels like playing God. That's because it kind of is. James looked tired. But 5 helped is better than none helped, because we couldn't choose. They made their selections. Ryan hated every second of it, but James was right. They sent acceptance letters and began intake processes. The first family meeting was scheduled for a Friday afternoon. Ryan was nervous in a way he hadn't been since his first day. This was real people's lives. What if they screwed it up? The family arrived 15 minutes early. A mother named Angela, her 2 kids, and her father who walked with a cane. Angela looked exhausted in a way Ryan recognized intimately. That bone-deep tired that came from never getting enough sleep, never having enough time, never being enough. Thank you for coming, Lena said warmly, gesturing them to seats in the conference room they'd converted for the meeting. I'm Lena Hart, and this is Ryan Cole. We're here to talk about how we can support your family. Angela's guard was up immediately. What's the catch? No catch, Ryan said. We're piloting a support program, childcare assistance, job training if you want it, emergency funding for unexpected expenses. We're trying to help families who are working hard but can't get ahead. Why? Lena and Ryan exchanged glances. They'd anticipated this question. Because the system is broken, Lena said simply, and we're trying to fix a small piece of it. Angela wasn't convinced. Nobody gives away free help. It's not free. You'll be giving us feedback, telling us what works and what doesn't, helping us build something better. Ryan leaned forward. You're not charity cases. You're partners in making this program actually useful. That seemed to shift something. Angela's shoulders relaxed fractionally. They spent the next hour going through what Heart Technologies could offer, what Angela's family needed, where the gaps were. Angela's father had medical bills from a fall last year. Her daughter needed glasses, but they'd been putting it off because of the cost. Her son was brilliant at math, but falling behind because Angela couldn't afford tutoring. The list went on. By the end of the meeting, they had an action plan. Ryan felt cautiously hopeful, but as Angela was leaving, she stopped at the door. Why do you care? She asked, looking at Ryan. You get it, I can tell. But her? She nodded at Lena. Rich people don't usually give a damn about people like us. Ryan glanced at Lena, who'd gone very still. Her mother did, Ryan said quietly, and Lena's trying to honor that. Angela studied Lena for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I'll give this a chance. But if it's just another runaround, another system that looks good on paper but doesn't actually help, I'm out. Fair enough, Lena said. After Angela and her family left, Lena sank into a chair. She's right to be skeptical, she said. Yeah, but she's giving us a chance. That's something. Is it enough? It has to be. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lena's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her expression darkened. I need to take this. Ryan nodded and stepped out. Through the glass wall, he could see Lena pacing, her voice raised. Not quite yelling, but close. When she finally emerged 20 minutes later, she looked shaken. Everything okay? Ryan asked. My ex-fiancé is threatening legal action, claims I defamed him during the breakup. Lena laughed bitterly, because apparently telling the board that he betrayed my trust is defamation. Can he actually do that? Probably not. But he can make my life miserable trying. She rubbed her temples. I'm so tired of fighting. Ryan understood that feeling intimately, the exhaustion that came from constant battle, from never getting to just exist without struggling. You want to get out of here? He asked impulsively. Lena looked surprised. What? It's Friday afternoon. Emma's at art class for another hour. You look like you need a break from this place. Ryan shrugged. Let's go somewhere that's not corporate and soul-crushing. Where? You'll see. 20 minutes later, they were back at Miller's Diner. Lena looked at the familiar faded sign and laughed. This is your solution? Best decision I ever made happened in this diner. Figured it was worth a return visit. They slid into a booth. Not the same one, but close enough. The waitress brought coffee without being asked. Lena wrapped her hands around the mug like she was cold. Thank you, she said quietly, for getting me out of there. You were about to snap. I've seen that look before. In the mirror, usually. How do you handle it? The constant pressure? The feeling like you're failing even when you're doing everything right? Ryan considered the question. Honestly, I think about Emma. About making her life better than mine was. That keeps me going when everything else feels pointless. What if you didn't have that? What if you were just fighting for yourself? Then I'd probably have given up a long time ago. Ryan met her eyes. But you're not fighting for yourself. You're fighting for your mom's legacy, for what she believed in. That's not nothing. It doesn't feel like enough. It is, though, because you're actually trying. Most people in your position wouldn't bother. Lena was quiet for a long moment. Then she noticed something. Is that new? She was looking at his wrist, at the red bracelet he always wore, faded fabric, fraying at the edges, but still intact. No, I've had it for years. Ryan touched the bracelet self-consciously. Why? I've seen one like it before. The color, the way it's woven. Lena's voice was strange. Where did you get it? Someone gave it to me, about 8 years ago. Ryan felt oddly defensive. Why does it matter? Who gave it to you? I don't know her name. Just a woman I met when things were really bad. I was living out of my car, Emma was a baby, and I was about ready to give up on everything. The memory still hurt. I was sitting in a parking lot trying to figure out if I could sell my car for rent money, even though I was living in it. And this woman approached me. Older, kind eyes. She asked if I was okay. Lena had gone very pale. I told her I was fine, obviously lying. And she sat down and talked to me for maybe an hour. About her son, about hard times, about not giving up. Then she gave me this bracelet. Said it was for strength, for remembering that hard times don't last forever. Ryan's voice got rough. She also gave me $500, cash. Told me to use it to get stable, to get Emma somewhere safe. What happened to her? Lena's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know. I tried to find her later, to pay her back, but I never could. Never even got her name. Ryan looked down at the bracelet. This is all I have left of her. Reminder that someone believed I was worth saving. Lena stood abruptly. I need some air. She walked out of the diner before Ryan could respond. He sat there, confused and worried, then followed her outside. Lena stood by her car, hands shaking, eyes wet. Lena, what's wrong? My mother made those bracelets, red ones specifically. She made hundreds of them over the years. Lena's voice broke. She'd give them to people she met, people who needed hope. She called them her strength threads. Ryan's world tilted sideways. Your mother, he said slowly, died 8 years ago. Car accident. Lena looked at him with something like wonder and pain mixed together. She used to drive around the city, looking for people who needed help. She'd talk to them, listen to their stories, give them whatever support she could. Money, resources, connections. And those bracelets. Ryan couldn't breathe. The woman who'd saved him, who'd given him hope when he had none, who'd made it possible for him to keep fighting. Lena's mother. I didn't know, he whispered. How could you? Lena wiped her eyes. She never told anyone. It was her private mission. After she died, I found boxes of those bracelets in her office, records of people she'd helped, thousands of them over the years. Her laugh was watery. I always wondered what happened to them, the people she helped. She saved my life. Ryan's voice cracked. I mean that literally. I was about to give up, and she showed up and convinced me to keep trying. That's what she did. That's who she was. Lena met his eyes. And you're here now, helping me build something in her name. That's not coincidence. What is it then? I don't know. Fate? Justice? Her continuing to help people even after she's gone? Lena shook her head. Does it matter? Ryan looked down at the red bracelet. All these years he'd carried a piece of the woman whose company he now worked for, whose daughter had found him in a diner and decided to take a chance. She'd be proud of you, he said. Your mom, for what you're trying to do. I hope so. Lena's smile was sad. I really hope so. They stood outside Miller's diner as the afternoon light faded, connected by a thread that had been woven years before either of them knew the other existed. The world felt smaller suddenly, more intentional. Ryan's phone buzzed. Emma, done with art class. I have to pick up my daughter, he said. I know. Lena touched his arm briefly. Ryan? Thank you for telling me about her, about what she did for you. Thank you for giving me a chance to pay it forward. He drove away, leaving Lena standing by her car, and wondered what the hell came next. Because everything had just changed, and he had no idea what it meant. Emma wouldn't stop asking questions on the drive home. You're being weird, Daddy. I'm not being weird. You are. You keep looking at your bracelet and getting all quiet. Emma leaned forward from the back seat, trying to see his face. Did something bad happen? No, Bug. Something good, I think. Ryan glanced in the rearview mirror at her concerned expression. Remember how I told you someone helped us a long time ago? When things were really hard? The nice lady who gave you money when I was a baby. Yeah. Well, I found out who she was today. Emma's eyes went wide. Really? Who? Lena's mom. Your boss, Lena? Yeah. Emma processed this information with the seriousness of a 7-year-old encountering something beyond her comprehension. That's weird. Very weird. But also kind of cool? Ryan smiled. Yeah, Bug. Kind of cool. They stopped for pizza on the way home, sitting in a booth that smelled like oregano and old grease. Emma drew on her napkin with the crayons the restaurant provided, already outgrowing them but still finding joy in the simple act. Ryan watched her work, his mind spinning through the implications of what he'd learned. Lena's mother had saved him, had given him the literal tools to keep fighting, and now her daughter was giving him something else, a chance to help others the way he'd been helped. The symmetry felt almost too perfect, like something from a story instead of real life. Is Lena sad? Emma asked without looking up from her drawing. What? About her mom. You said she died. That's sad. Yeah, I think she's very sad. You should give her a hug. Hugs help when you're sad. Ryan's chest tightened. That's not really how it works with bosses, Em. Why not? Everyone needs hugs. You're not wrong, but it's complicated. Emma shrugged, returning to her napkin masterpiece. Ryan wished life was as simple as she saw it, that comfort could be given freely without worrying about appropriateness or professional boundaries or the 1,000 other things that made adult relationships complicated. That weekend, Ryan couldn't shake the restless feeling that had settled into his bones. He cleaned the apartment, took Emma to the park, helped Mrs. Chen fix her leaky faucet, but his mind kept circling back to Lena, to the bracelet, to the woman who'd changed his life without him ever knowing her name. On Sunday evening, his phone rang. Lena. "Hey," he answered, surprised. "Everything okay? Are you busy tomorrow? Before work?" "Depends. Why?" "I want to show you something. Can you meet me at 8? I'll text you the address." "Lena, please, it's important." She hung up before he could ask more questions. The address came through a minute later. Ryan looked it up and frowned. It was a cemetery on the north side of town. Monday morning, he dropped Emma at school early and drove to the address Lena had sent. The cemetery was old, tree-lined, peaceful in a way that felt intentional. He found Lena standing in front of a simple headstone, her arms wrapped around herself despite the warm morning. "Thanks for coming," she said without looking at him. Ryan read the headstone. Margaret Elizabeth Hart, beloved mother, visionary, friend to all who knew her. The dates confirmed what Lena had said. She'd died 8 years ago, almost to the month from when Ryan had met her in that parking lot. "I come here sometimes," Lena said, "when I need to think, or when I'm about to make a decision I'm not sure about." She finally looked at Ryan. "I wanted you to meet her. Officially, I mean." "Lena, I don't know if that's—" "You knew her. You spent an hour with her, which is more than most of the people at her funeral could say. She chose strangers over society events, parking lots over galas." Lena's voice was thick. "My father hated it. Thought she was wasting her time and money on people who didn't deserve it." "Is that why they divorced?" "Among other reasons, he wanted her to be a certain kind of wealthy, charitable in the tax-deductible way. Donations to museums, hospital wings with our name on them. But Mom actually cared about people." Lena touched the headstone. After the divorce, she threw herself into the company and into helping people. "I think it was the only thing that made her happy." Ryan stood quietly, giving Lena space to say whatever she needed to say. "She died driving home from one of her trips around the city. Some drunk driver ran a red light." Lena's voice broke. "The police found cash in her car, $5,000, separated into envelopes with different amounts, and a box of those red bracelets." She looked at Ryan's wrist. She was going to help someone that night, someone who needed her, and she never made it. "I'm sorry. I never understood it before. Why she did it, why she gave so much to strangers when she had a daughter who needed her too." Lena wiped her eyes. "I was angry at her for years, for choosing other people over me." "You don't feel that way now?" "Now I think she was trying to fix something broken. And maybe she knew I'd eventually understand." Lena turned to face Ryan fully. "Meeting you, hearing what she did for you, seeing how that one act changed your entire life. It makes sense now. All of it." Ryan didn't know what to say. The weight of this moment felt enormous. "She'd like what we're doing," Lena continued. "The program. Helping families like yours, like Angela's. This is what she would have wanted. Then we make sure it works. We make sure it actually helps people." Lena nodded, composing herself. They stood in silence for a few minutes, paying respects to a woman who'd touched both their lives in completely different ways. As they walked back to their cars, Lena spoke again. "I found her journals last night, boxes of them, dating back 20 years. She documented everyone she helped, notes about their situations, what she gave them, follow-up when she could manage it." "Did she write about me?" "I don't know yet. There are hundreds of entries, but I'm going through them." Lena stopped by her car. "If I find yours, do you want to know what she wrote?" Ryan thought about it. Part of him desperately wanted to know what Margaret Hart had seen in him that day. What had made her stop, made her care? But another part was afraid. What if it wasn't as meaningful as he'd built it up to be? What if he was just another entry in a long list? "Yeah," he said finally. "I want to know." They drove separately to Hart Technologies, but the morning felt different now, heavier with history and connection. The week progressed with growing intensity. The pilot program was in full swing, all 5 families engaged and receiving support. Angela's father got the medical care he needed. Another family received emergency car repairs that would have destroyed their budget. A single dad got job training that led to a better position. But resistance within Hart Technologies was also building. Several executives openly questioned the program's value. Marcus's allies were circulating rumors that Lena was having a breakdown, using company resources for vanity projects. The board scheduled a review meeting for the following month. Ryan found himself working longer hours, gathering data, documenting outcomes, trying to build a case that couldn't be dismissed. James helped, but he was pragmatic about their chances. "The board wants this to fail," he said bluntly during one late-night session. "They've already decided Lena's too emotional, too young, too whatever. We could cure cancer, and they'd find a way to criticize the methodology. So what do? We make the results so undeniable that even they can't ignore them, and we prepare for this to fail anyway." That's depressing. That's corporate reality. James closed his laptop. "Go home, Ryan. Spend time with your daughter. This'll still be here tomorrow." Ryan took the advice. He'd been so consumed with work that he'd started slipping back into old patterns, missing bedtime, distracted during dinner, checking his phone constantly. Emma called him on it one evening. "You're doing it again." "Doing what?" "Being far away, even though you're right here." Emma put down her fork. "I don't like it when you do that." Guilt stabbed through him. "You're right. I'm sorry, Bug. Is work bad again?" "Work's complicated. That's grown up for bad." Ryan laughed despite himself. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just don't always notice." But Emma smiled, taking the edge off the criticism. They spent the rest of the evening fully present. Board games, silly voices during story time, the kind of quality time Ryan had promised himself he'd prioritize when he took this job. Somewhere along the way, he'd lost sight of why he was doing any of this. The next morning, Lena called him into her office before 9. She looked like she hadn't slept. "I found it," she said without preamble. "Your entry. In my mother's journal." Ryan's heart kicked. "What did it say?" Lena handed him a worn leather notebook, open to a page dated 8 years ago. The handwriting was neat, precise, somehow warm despite being just ink on paper. "Met a young man today, maybe 24 or 25, living in his car with an infant daughter, exhausted beyond anything I've seen in a while. Asked him what happened. He told me about the baby's mother leaving, about trying to work while caring for a newborn, about the system failing him at every turn. But what struck me wasn't the hardship. It was the love. The absolute devotion to this tiny person who disrupted his entire life. He kept saying, she deserves better than this. Not, I deserve better. Her. That kind of selflessness is rare. Gave him 501 of my strength threads. Told him to use it wisely. I think he will. There's something about him, a core of steel underneath the exhaustion. He'll make it. They both will. Ryan had to read it twice through the blur in his eyes. Margaret Hart had seen him, had recognized something worth saving, worth believing in. She was right, Lena said softly. You made it, both of you. Because of her. Because you didn't give up. She gave you a tool, but you did the work. Lena took the journal back gently. There are hundreds of entries like this, people she believed in, people she helped. And I've been trying to run her company like it's just business, when really it was always about this, about seeing people. So what now? Now we prove that her way works, that business can be profitable and purposeful. Lena's jaw set. The board meeting is in 3 weeks. We show them undeniable results. We make them see what my mother saw. And if they don't, then I go down fighting, just like she would have. The next 3 weeks were a blur of preparation. Ryan and James compiled data, tracked outcomes, documented every success and setback. They prepared presentations, anticipated objections, built contingencies. The 5 pilot families were thriving in ways that went beyond simple metrics. Angela had returned to school for nursing certification. Another family's child, who'd been struggling academically, was now on the honor roll. The single dad had been promoted at his job. These weren't just statistics. These were lives actually changing. But Ryan knew it wouldn't be enough for some people. Numbers could be dismissed. Success stories could be written off as anecdotal. The board wanted profit projections and shareholder value, not feel-good narratives. 2 days before the meeting, everything started falling apart. One of the pilot families withdrew from the program. The mother, spooked by judgmental questions from a caseworker at another agency, decided the attention wasn't worth it. Then a local business journal ran a piece questioning Heart Technology's financial priorities, citing anonymous sources claiming Lena was diverting funds from core business to pet projects. Ryan found Lena in her office at midnight, surrounded by papers, looking defeated. "We're not going to make it," she said. "We don't know that." "Yes, we do. The board's already decided. This meeting is just theater." She laughed bitterly. "My ex was right. I'm too emotional for this. I let my feelings about my mother cloud my judgment. Stop." Ryan's voice was sharp enough that Lena looked up, startled. "Your mother wasn't wrong. Her approach wasn't weakness. It was the only thing that actually mattered. That doesn't pay bills, doesn't it? You think loyalty means nothing? You think employees work harder for companies that treat them like numbers instead of people?" Ryan leaned forward. "I worked 3 jobs for bosses who didn't know my name, who'd replace me without a second thought, and I did the bare minimum because why give more? But here, I'm working nights on this program not because you're paying me, but because it matters, because you treated me like I was worth something. That's not scalable. Why not? Why can't caring about people be the strategy instead of the afterthought?" Ryan stood, pacing. "Your mother built this company on relationships, on actually giving a damn. And it worked. It became successful not despite her approach, but because of it. The board doesn't see it that way. Then make them see it. Show them what happens when you invest in people instead of just extracting value from them." Ryan stopped pacing. "We have proof. 4 families doing better. Employees in this program working harder, staying longer, telling others. That's tangible. That's real." Lena looked at him for a long moment. Some of the defeat faded from her expression. "You really believe this can work?" "I have to, because if it can't, then what was the point of your mother helping me? What's the point of any of it?" Ryan touched his bracelet. "She believed people were worth investing in. You believe it too. That's not naivety. That's the only thing that actually changes anything." Lena stood, walking to the window overlooking the city. "If we lose this fight, I'm probably done. The board will force me out. Install someone who runs things the traditional way. Then we don't lose." "You make it sound simple." "It's not simple, but it's necessary." Ryan joined her at the window. "Your mother didn't give up on me when it would have been easier. I'm not giving up on this." They stood side by side, looking out at the city full of people struggling, fighting, trying to make it work. People like Ryan had been. People Margaret Hart had spent her life helping. "Okay," Lena said finally. "We fight. All the way to the end." The board meeting was scheduled for Friday at 2. Ryan spent Thursday night rehearsing his part of the presentation until Emma threatened to hide his notes. "You know it already, Daddy. You're just making yourself nervous." "I can't mess this up, Bug." "You won't. You're really good at talking about important stuff." Emma hugged him. "And if those bored people don't listen, they're just dumb." Ryan laughed. "I don't think I can say that in the meeting." "Why not? It's true." Friday morning crawled by. Ryan couldn't eat, couldn't focus. At 1:30, Lena appeared at his office door. "Ready?" "Absolutely not." "Good. Neither am I." She smiled tightly. "Let's go be terrified together." The boardroom was designed to intimidate. Massive table, expensive chairs, walls lined with achievements and accolades. 15 board members, most looking skeptical before the presentation even began. Lena started with the overview, her voice steady despite the hostile audience. She outlined the program's goals, the initial investment, the framework they'd built. Ryan watched the board members' faces, seeing skepticism, boredom, outright dismissal. Then it was his turn. Ryan stood, his hand shaking slightly as he pulled up the first slide. But when he started talking, something shifted. He wasn't reading statistics. He was telling stories. Angela's family getting stable, kids getting opportunities, parents finding breathing room to actually be present. "These aren't numbers on a spreadsheet," he said. "These are people who were working themselves to death and barely surviving. The system told them to work harder, be smarter, make better choices. But the system was designed to keep them trapped. We gave them actual support, and they thrived. Because the problem was never them. It was the system." "Mr. Cole," interrupted a board member, the same severe glasses woman from before. This is very moving, but we're not a charity organization. We have shareholders to answer to. And what do you tell shareholders when your turnover rate is 30% higher than competitors? When you're spending millions recruiting and training employees who leave within a year because they're burned out and undervalued? Ryan pulled up comparison data. Companies with strong support programs have better retention, higher productivity, stronger community reputation. This isn't charity. This is competitive advantage. Another board member leaned forward. You're cherry-picking data. Am I? Talk to your own HR department. Ask them how many employees leave because of work-life balance issues. Ask how much you spend on recruitment versus retention. Ryan felt his fear burning away, replaced by anger at their willful blindness. You want profit? Invest in people. It's not complicated. The room erupted in crosstalk. Some board members arguing, others pulling up data on their tablets, the severe glasses woman demanding order. Then the chairman, a silver-haired man who'd been silent throughout, raised his hand. Everyone quieted. Ms. Hart, he said, your mother and I disagreed on many things. She thought business should be personal. I thought that was inefficient. He paused. But Margaret was right about one thing. People remember how you treat them. And companies built on relationships last longer than companies built on quarterly earnings. Lena's eyes widened slightly. That said, the chairman continued, this program needs to prove its value beyond anecdotes. I propose we expand the pilot to 20 families for 6 more months. If the metrics support your claims, we scale it. If not, we shut it down. No extensions, no excuses. That's overly generous, as severe glasses woman started. That's a compromise, the chairman cut her off. All in favor? The vote was split, but passed. Barely. Ryan felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. They'd won. Not completely, not permanently, but they had 6 more months. Lena stood, her composure perfect despite the tremor Ryan could see in her hands. Thank you. We won't waste this opportunity. The meeting adjourned, board members filed out, some congratulating Lena, others pointedly silent. Ryan stood frozen until Lena grabbed his arm. We did it, she whispered. We survived. There's a difference. Right now I'll take it. They walked back to her office in silence, the adrenaline slowly fading into exhaustion. Ashley brought coffee, neither of them would drink. The city spread out below them, indifferent to their small victory. 6 months, Lena said. 20 families. We can do it? Can we? We have to. Ryan looked at her. Your mom didn't give up on people. We can't either. Lena nodded slowly, then, unexpectedly, she smiled. Emma was right. What? She told you to give me a hug that day. When you told her about my mother. Lena's smile widened. She said everyone needs hugs. She's 7. Everything's simple when you're 7. Maybe we should listen to 7-year-olds more often. Ryan laughed, the tension finally breaking. They'd survived. The program would continue. It wasn't perfect, wasn't guaranteed, but it was a chance, and sometimes a chance was all you needed. The next 6 months were the hardest and best of Ryan's life. Expanding from 5 families to 20 meant everything scaled up. More meetings, more coordination, more problems that didn't have easy solutions. Ryan found himself mediating disputes, troubleshooting crises at 2 a.m, learning on the fly how to actually run a program instead of just theorizing about it. But it was also working. Genuinely, measurably working. Marcus Chen, a mechanic who'd been barely scraping by, got his ASE certifications through the program's training fund and opened his own shop. Within 3 months, he was hiring other people from the program. A single mother named Teresa went from working overnight cleaning crews to day shifts at a marketing firm after the program covered her associate's degree. Her kids went from latchkey children to having their mom home for dinner. The stories piled up, each one different, each one proof that Margaret Hart's approach wasn't naive idealism. It was practical investment in human potential, but the resistance never stopped. Every success was met with skepticism. Every setback was magnified. The Severe Glasses board member, whose name Ryan learned was Judith Carr, watched the program like a hawk waiting for mice. Any mistake, any inefficiency, and she pounced. We're hemorrhaging money on these people, she said during a quarterly review, her voice sharp with disdain. The ROI is questionable at best. The ROI is 5 families completely stabilized and contributing to the economy, Lena countered. Marcus's shop is now paying taxes, employing 3 people, generating revenue. One success story doesn't justify the expense. It's not one. It's 20 families showing measurable improvement. Lower emergency room usage, kids performing better in school, parents staying in jobs longer, all of which are externalities that don't appear on our balance sheet. Judith leaned forward. Ms. Hart, I appreciate your passion, but this board has a fiduciary responsibility to shareholders, not to society's problems. Ryan had sat through enough of these meetings to recognize the script. Judith wasn't interested in evidence. She'd decided the program was wasteful before it started, and no amount of data would change her mind. But the chairman, who'd given them this chance, remained quietly supportive. He never said much, but his vote counted. As long as they had him, they had a chance. Emma's art progressed in ways that left Ryan speechless. Her teacher, a woman named Ms. Patricia, who'd seen thousands of kids over 40 years, pulled Ryan aside one Saturday. Your daughter has something special, she said. Real talent, not just kid cute. She sees the world differently. She gets that from her mother, Ryan said automatically, then winced. Emma's mother had left them. Why was he crediting her? She gets it from someone who taught her to look closely, Ms. Patricia corrected gently. That's you, Mr. Cole, whether you realize it or not. Emma had made a friend in class, the girl Maya who drew horses. They'd become inseparable, filling notebooks with collaborative stories told through pictures. Watching Emma laugh with her friend, completely unself-conscious and joyful, made everything else worth it. One evening in late November, Ryan got a call from Angela, one of the original 5 families. I need to tell you something, she said, her voice tight. Ryan's stomach dropped. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. That's what I need to tell you. Angela's voice cracked. My dad had a doctor's appointment today. Full physical, the works. You know what the doctor said? His blood pressure's normal for the first time in 5 years. His stress levels are down. He's healthier because we're not constantly drowning anymore. Angela, no, listen. I've been suspicious of this whole thing since day one, waiting for the catch, for it to fall apart. But it's been 6 months, and my kids are thriving, and my dad is healthy, and I'm in school becoming a nurse. She laughed, but it sounded like crying. You gave us our lives back. I need you to know that. Ryan had to clear his throat twice before he could respond. You did the work. We just removed some obstacles. Bullshit. You removed all the obstacles, and I'm not the only one who sees it. Angela paused. The families are talking. We want to do something, give back somehow. We don't have money, but we have time and skills, and we want to help. You don't owe us anything. That's not the point. We want to. Angela's voice firmed up. Your program gave us stability. Now we want to help other people get stable. How do we do that? Ryan sat down heavily. This was exactly what Margaret Hart had envisioned. Not just helping people, but creating a cycle where those who were helped became helpers themselves. Let me talk to Lena, he said. We'll figure something out. When he brought it to Lena the next morning, she got very quiet. That's it, she said finally. What's it? The thing that makes this sustainable. The thing Judith cannot argue with. Lena started pacing, her mind clearly racing. We're not creating dependence. We're creating a network. People who help each other, support each other, mentor the next group. A community. Exactly. And communities are self-sustaining. They don't need constant corporate funding once they reach critical mass. Lena pulled up a blank document on her computer, typing rapidly. What if we formalize it? Create a structure where program graduates become mentors, resources, support systems for new families? You mean like paying them? Some of them, maybe, but also just connecting them. Marcus the mechanic could offer discounted repairs to program families. Teresa could help with job applications. Angela could provide basic health advice. Lena looked up, excited. We're not just helping families, we're building infrastructure. Ryan thought about it. Judith will say we're just making it more complicated. Judith will find fault no matter what we do, but the chairman might see the value, and the other board members who are on the fence, this could tip them. Lena's excitement was infectious. What if we present it at the next review? Show them we're not creating dependency, we're creating resilience. When's the next review? 2 weeks. That's not much time. Then we better get started. They worked frantically, pulling together data, organizing the families who wanted to participate, building a presentation that showed the program's evolution. James was skeptical, but helped anyway. Patricia from HR loved the idea and helped with structural planning. Emma noticed Ryan was stressed, even though he tried to hide it. Big meeting coming up? She asked one night over spaghetti. Yeah, Bug, really big. Is it about helping people? It is. Emma considered this while twirling pasta on her fork. Then it'll be okay, because you're really good at helping people. How do you figure? You help me every day, and Mrs. Chen, and all those families you talk about. Emma looked at him seriously. If you can help all those people, some boring bored people should be easy. Ryan laughed. I wish it worked that way. It does. You just don't believe it yet. The confidence of 7-year-olds was something Ryan envied. Emma saw the world in clear lines, good and bad, right and wrong, helpful and harmful. She hadn't yet learned that the world was mostly gray, that good intentions often failed, that systems were designed to resist change, but maybe that clarity was exactly what they needed. The night before the presentation, Ryan couldn't sleep. He lay on the pull-out couch, staring at the ceiling, running through everything that could go wrong. What if the families didn't present well? What if Judith tore apart their logic? What if the chairman had changed his mind? His phone buzzed. Lena. You awake? Obviously. Me too. Want to stress together? That's not a real solution. It's better than stressing alone. Ryan smiled in the dark. Fair point. We're going to be okay, Lena said, but she didn't sound convinced. You don't believe that? No, but I'm trying to. She was quiet for a moment. My mother's journals. I've been reading more of them. She documented every failure too. Every person she helped who fell back into crisis. Every time she gave money that got wasted. It didn't always work. But she kept trying. Yeah, she did. Lena's voice was soft. I think that's what I'm learning. Success isn't fixing everything. It's refusing to give up even when things fail. Your mom was smart. She was. I wish I'd understood that before she died. Lena sighed. Anyway, try to sleep. Tomorrow's going to be intense. You too, Lena. Ryan, thank you for believing in this, for believing in me. You made it easy. The line went quiet, then disconnected. Ryan set his phone down and closed his eyes. Sleep didn't come, but the anxiety felt less overwhelming. They were in this together. That had to count for something. The boardroom was packed, not just the usual 15 members, but additional executives, department heads, even some press that Judith had invited, clearly expecting a public failure she could document. Ryan stood with Lena and the 5 program families they'd brought, Angela, Marcus, Teresa, and 2 others, all of them nervous but determined. Lena started the presentation, laying out the program's evolution, the expanded scope, the measurable outcomes. Her voice was steady, professional, but Ryan could see the tension in her shoulders. Then it was time for the families to speak. Angela went first. She talked about her father's health, her nursing program, her kids doing well in school. But she didn't beg or plead. She spoke with the authority of someone who'd survived and was now thriving. This program didn't save me, she said clearly. It removed the barriers that were keeping me from saving myself. There's a difference. I did the work, but I couldn't have done it while drowning. Marcus talked about his shop, about hiring people, about giving back. Teresa talked about breaking cycles of poverty, about showing her kids that different futures were possible. The stories piled up, each one human and real and undeniable. Then Ryan stepped forward. I was one of the people Margaret Hart helped, he said, and the room went very quiet. 8 years ago, I was living in my car with my infant daughter. Completely broke, completely hopeless. And a stranger gave me $500 and a red bracelet and told me to keep fighting. He held up his wrist, showing the faded bracelet he still wore. That stranger was Lena's mother, and that $500 changed everything. It got us into an apartment, gave me the stability to find work, to build a life for my daughter. Ryan looked around the room. I didn't know who she was, didn't know she ran this company, but I knew she saw me as a person worth investing in. And that belief kept me going through years of working 3 jobs and barely surviving. Judith started to speak, but the chairman held up a hand, stopping her. The families in this room represent what's possible when you actually support people instead of just lecturing them about personal responsibility, Ryan continued. Not all of them will succeed. Some will fall back into crisis. That's reality. But the ones who make it, they lift up others. They create ripple effects. They prove that the system can work if we actually design it to help instead of punish. This is all very touching, Judith interjected, unable to stay quiet any longer. But it doesn't address the fundamental issue. This program costs money, money that could go to shareholders, to expansion, to actual business priorities. What's more important to business than having a stable, healthy workforce and community? Angela asked, her voice sharp. My kids aren't going to need public assistance in 20 years because I'm giving them a different start. Marcus's employees have health insurance and fair wages. We're not drains on society. We're contributing. But we couldn't get here alone. Anecdotal evidence. It's not anecdotal when it's 20 families, Marcus cut in. When it's documented outcomes, reduced emergency costs, improved school performance, decreased need for other services. Those are numbers. Real numbers. The chairman leaned forward. Ms. Carr, you've opposed this program from the beginning. What would it take to convince you of its value? Judith's expression hardened. Honestly, nothing. I don't believe corporations should be in the business of social work. We have a responsibility to shareholders, not to fix society's problems. And what happens when society's problems make it impossible to find qualified workers? When communities collapse and take markets with them? The chairman's voice was mild but pointed. Short-term profit thinking is what got us to this point. Margaret Hart understood long-term investment. Margaret Hart is dead, Judith said bluntly, and her idealistic approach died with her. The room went ice cold. Lena's face went white. Ryan saw her hands clench, but before anyone could respond, the chairman stood. Margaret Hart built this company from nothing. She created thousands of jobs, generated millions in revenue, and did it all while maintaining the lowest employee turnover rate in the industry. She was my friend for 40 years, and she was a better business person than most people in this room will ever be. His voice was steel. This program continues, full funding, expansion to 50 families within the year. Anyone who has a problem with that can bring it to a shareholder vote, but I suspect you'll lose. Judith looked like she'd been slapped. Several other board members shifted uncomfortably. Motion to approve program expansion, the chairman said. All in favor? The vote passed, not unanimously, but decisively. Lena looked stunned. Ryan felt like he'd been holding his breath for 6 months and could finally exhale. The families surrounded them after the meeting, excited and relieved. Press asked questions. Executives who'd been silent before suddenly wanted to be involved. The energy was chaotic, but good. Ryan found Lena standing by the windows, watching the city. We did it, he said. He shut her down. The chairman. He actually shut Judith down. Your mom's friend. He wasn't going to let her legacy get destroyed. Lena nodded, but tears were sliding down her face. I wish she was here to see this. She is, in a way. Ryan touched his bracelet. Everything we're doing is her vision, her belief in people. She's in every family we help. That's overly sentimental. Doesn't make it less true. Lena laughed through her tears. No, I guess it doesn't. The expansion happened faster than expected. By spring, they were supporting 50 families. By summer, they'd created a formalized mentorship structure where program graduates helped new participants. The community grew organically, people connecting and supporting each other in ways Ryan couldn't have designed. Emma's art was selected for a youth exhibition at a local gallery. Ryan stood in front of her painting, a complex piece showing a city at sunset, full of tiny detailed figures helping each other, and felt his chest get tight. It's us, Emma explained to visitors. All the people who help each other. That's what makes the city beautiful. Patricia told Ryan that Emma had been accepted into an advanced program for young artists. Full scholarship, 3 years of intensive training. She could really go somewhere with this, Ms. Patricia said. If she keeps working, if she stays passionate, she could make a career out of art. Ryan thought about the someday house Emma had drawn a year ago. about dreams that had seemed impossible, about how one woman's kindness 8 years ago had created ripples that were still spreading. 1 year after that first lunch at Miller's Diner, Lena suggested they go back. Anniversary lunch, she said. Seems appropriate. They sat in the same booth, though this time Ryan didn't hesitate to order a full meal. The diner was unchanged, same worn seats, same smell of coffee and bacon, same working-class lunch crowd. A lot's changed, Lena said, looking around. A lot hasn't, Ryan countered. People are still struggling, still working too hard for too little. We helped 50 families. There are thousands more. Always the optimist. I'm serious. This program is great, but it's a drop in the ocean. The system is still broken. So what do we do? Ryan smiled. We keep going, help more families, build bigger networks, push other companies to do the same. He paused. Your mom didn't fix everything, but she made things better for the people she reached. That's not nothing. No, it's not nothing. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Lena pulled out a small box. I have something for you, she said. Ryan opened it. Inside was a red bracelet, identical to the one he wore but new, unworn. My mother made hundreds of these. I found her supplies, her pattern. I've been learning how to make them. Lena's voice was soft. I wanted you to have a new one. For Emma, maybe. Or for someone you meet who needs it. Ryan's throat closed up. Lena, you don't have to wear it. But I thought maybe the tradition should continue. Red bracelets for strength, for hope, for remembering that someone believes in you. I'll give it to Emma. Let her decide who needs it. That's perfect. The waitress brought their check. Ryan reached for it, but Lena was faster. My turn to buy lunch, she said. Pretty sure you've bought me a lot more than lunch. And you've given me purpose. I'd say we're even. They walked out into afternoon sunshine. Heart Technologies was thriving. The support program was expanding. Emma was flourishing. Marcus's shop was hiring a 4th employee. Teresa had been promoted twice. Angela was graduating from nursing school next month. Ryan thought about Margaret Hart, about that conversation in a parking lot 8 years ago, about a woman who'd chosen to see potential instead of problems, about how one act of kindness could branch out in ways nobody could predict. His phone buzzed. Emma. Dad, Maya's mom said I can come over for dinner. Can I, please? Ryan smiled. His daughter had friends, opportunities, a future that looked bright instead of impossible. Yeah, Bug. You can go. 3 heart emojis came back immediately. Everything okay? Lena asked. Everything's good. Ryan looked at the red bracelet in his hand, at the city full of people struggling and helping and trying. Everything's really good. They parted ways at the parking lot. Lena back to Heart Technologies for an afternoon of meetings. Ryan to pick up Emma, to hear about her day, to be present in a way he'd never been able to before. That evening, he gave Emma the new bracelet and told her about her grandmother figure she'd never met, about red threads for strength, about how small acts of kindness could change everything. Emma held the bracelet carefully. Can I give this to Maya? Her mom's been really stressed about money lately. Ryan thought about it, about cycles of giving, about Margaret Hart's legacy continuing through his daughter's generosity. Yeah, I think that's exactly what you should do. Emma beamed and ran off to wrap the bracelet in tissue paper, already planning how to present it. Ryan sat on the couch in their small apartment, the faded red bracelet still on his wrist, and felt something that had been absent for most of his life. Peace. Not because everything was perfect. Problems still existed. Struggles continued. The system was still broken in 1,000 ways. But for the first time, he wasn't drowning. For the first time, he could breathe and plan and hope. For the first time, the someday house didn't seem impossible. And scattered throughout the city were families finding that same breathing room, that same hope, creating their own networks, supporting each other, building something sustainable. Margaret Hart had planted seeds without knowing what would grow. Now, years after her death, those seeds were becoming a forest. Ryan closed his eyes and whispered to a woman he'd met only once, "Thank you." Somewhere, he thought, she was smiling. The next morning, Ryan arrived at Heart Technologies to find a crowd in the lobby. The program had been featured in a major business magazine. Other companies were calling, asking about implementation. The chairman wanted to discuss nationwide expansion. It was overwhelming and exciting and terrifying. Lena found him staring at his computer, looking shell-shocked. "You okay?" "I don't know. This is getting big." "Good. It should be big." Lena sat on the edge of his desk. "My mother helped people one at a time. We're building something that could help thousands. That's what she would have wanted. What if we mess it up? Then we'll fix it and try again. That's how this works." Lena's smile was warm. "Besides, you've got me, and I've got you, and we've got an entire community of people who believe in this." Ryan looked at her, this CEO who'd thrown a salad at her own executive, who'd taken a chance on a stranger, who'd refused to let her mother's legacy die. "Yeah," he said, "we've got this." And somehow, impossibly, he believed it. 5 years later, Ryan stood at a podium in front of 300 people. The Heart Foundation's annual gala, honoring families who'd transformed their lives through the program. Emma, now 12 and impossibly talented, had designed the event program cover. He looked out at the crowd. Angela was there with her nursing colleagues, Marcus with his staff, Teresa with her family. Hundreds of others whose lives had been touched by Margaret Hart's vision and Lena's determination to see it through. The program had expanded to 15 cities. Other companies had adopted similar models. The ripple effects were unmeasurable but undeniable. Lena stood beside him, her speech already delivered, looking proud and exhausted and content. "Ready?" she whispered. "Never," Ryan whispered back. But he stepped up anyway, looked at the sea of faces, and began to speak about strength threads and second chances, about communities and kindness, about how one woman in a parking lot had changed his life, and how that change had spread like wildfire through hundreds of others. The crowd listened. Some cried. Many smiled. And when Ryan finished, when the applause faded and the gala continued, he found Emma in the crowd. She wore a new red bracelet. The third one she'd given away had come back to her, passed forward from Maya to someone else who'd eventually learned where it started. "Good speech, Dad." "You think?" "I know." Emma hugged him. Grandma Margaret would be proud. It was the name she'd adopted for the woman she'd never met, the woman whose kindness had made all of this possible. "Yeah, Bug, I think she would be." They stood together in the ballroom full of people who'd been helped and were now helping others, the cycle continuing, the community growing, the vision spreading. And in his pocket, Ryan carried the original faded red bracelet, the one that had been with him through everything, the one that reminded him that sometimes salvation came from the most unexpected places. Sometimes it came from a stranger in a parking lot. Sometimes it came from a shared table in a diner. Sometimes it came from refusing to let pain and struggle win. Ryan thought about that first lunch, about Lena's condition that he had to actually eat, about how a simple act of humanity had grown into something neither of them could have imagined. The world was still broken in countless ways, but they'd fixed a small piece of it. And that small piece was fixing other pieces, which were fixing others, spreading out like light in darkness. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. And sometimes, Ryan had learned, enough was exactly what you needed.